Okay, good afternoon and welcome to the stream. This is kind of like a start to quite a big project, which is like a continuation of maybe even a bigger project. So at globalcarbonprice.com that we have here on the right, there's the website I have made that is can be used to simulate like the income distribution effects of a carbon price that is adequate to stop climate change at a chosen level, so like chosen temperature target actually. Yeah, so I'm not gonna present the page here too much. You can go try it out yourself, but I think maybe I want to emphasize that the most uncertain thing about the site is what is the level of carbon price that is adequate for reaching those climate goals, and that's kind of like the point of the one main point of the page, that the user can try out various carbon prices to see the effect on the income distribution. I've been meaning to update the page for a long time now, and I've been a little bit too busy to do it, but maybe now during the summer I'm not so busy, so I like to get it done. And today I don't think we maybe won't have any coding. So the page is made in R language with the Shiny. There's the Shiny package that allows this kind of dashboard production, which the site is. It's a dashboard site and then there's these ggplot2 elements here, which is another ggplot2, another package that's been heavily used. But the site is, I think the main problem with the site that it's not so easy to navigate or to use, and I don't have like not so much like prior web development experience, so this is why I've had some ideas on how to improve the site, and probably a lot more ideas will come up too. So I think today I'm gonna like maybe focus on some of those ideas and think about whether or not they can be implemented on the site. So maybe the main thing, one of the main things, let's see, I should actually get something to, I wonder where I could like write this stuff down. I'm gonna actually so yeah, I have the browser here. So let's start with the layout. Now the layout kind of functions so that if the page is it has the selection stuff up here, and then you have the graphs down here, and I kinda and the selection stuff is in this kind of tabs here. I think I want to change this a little bit so that the selection stuff is to the left, and then I would have so there would be this new, let's see if we have the page here, like that. It goes down there. So I kind of want to have so yeah, maybe we keep some kind of header here. I think it's nice to have, and then like have the input buttons here. Let's see. Input, and then we have now I'm not kind of like sure, like, do we need, we have here on the right hand side now on the web page we have this kind of, so these are used to show kind of like what's the value for each of these variables. And I've been thinking about having a text section for the results. So now I think the big problem is that it is very hard to get like it's very hard to get into this stuff. So I've been thinking that there would be nice to be this kind of text. Let's see. I'm gonna try to get that. Let's see. I'm gonna try to get a writer here. We're gonna get into that. So it's a new window capture, I think, existing. Okay, let's make this narrower, and then we're gonna place it somewhere like this. I don't know if this is gonna work. Maybe here. Maybe just place it here. And we want to have it here, like this. Oh yeah. I don't know if this works well, but I want to have in the page the kind of text section. So let's pick this up a little bit now. Yeah. So it could be maybe over here, like a text. Could be like this, and then we would have the graphs here maybe, or a graph. Let's put the S in parentheses now. So how the texting would work, we would have this kind of, let's make it a little bit bigger. So to stop climate change, at below x degrees of warming at x% at likelihood, or at, yeah, I think it has to be said like this, at x% likelihood or maybe something, yeah, maybe it could be like useful now to think about like how would this be structured. So because right now when you go to the page, and if you're not too familiar at like understanding like the concept that's going on here, that we have a carbon budget, and you choose the, like if you don't, especially if you don't like understand like a concept like climate neutrality or carbon neutrality or something like that, it might be difficult to grasp like what your selections mean that you make here on the site. So that's why I think it would be nice to have this text that illustrate, and then you can make the connections that in the text. So this would always change depending on what are your selections in the dashboard. So if you select here, you select like 2 degrees. This could also be done a little bit better, this selection process, that you select like separately the degrees and the percentage. So that would also make it maybe, or also like if you have this text here, that would also be like nice if you could change stuff on the fly inside the like there's this x degrees here, so there's the selection window would kind of be like embedded within the text. I think that's also possible. And then the text is kind of like structured around that selection box. That could make it even more. But I don't know if that's like worth the trade-off there. But in any case, we would have these text results, and maybe those would be like the first thing that pops up. So like this would be especially like for the new users of the site, and then you could maybe the graph stuff is for more advanced users, or when you have kind of like understood what's happening in the text, then it's easier to jump into the graph results to better see the dynamics and stuff like that, or kind of like this time progression of various variables. Yeah. Okay, then here the user can select like is it like a linear reduction path, or is it this kind of like, I don't know what's the better term for this, percentual, like what if the reduction is like X% X% per year, what do you call that, yeah, I don't know what's the, I've been using this percentual because maybe it might be wrong, but maybe you can understand what it means. So so here also like, and then you could have like different in the text here. I think it would be nice you could have like different colors for stuff that is selected. So here this would be like, for example, green. Green would be like in the text in this text results, like that would describe that if you have like directly made the choice. So here we continue. Percentual decrease each year. So, oh no, actually, maybe it would be better to have year X being the, like, I'm just trying to like I don't care too much about the grammar now, but I'm thinking about how these like how it would be best to order this text so that it's also easy for the user to make the connection between the selections and the text that's the result of those selections. And here first we have like a budget. We have this budget thing, we have the targeted warming and the likelihood, and then we have this. I don't think like this start here thing is kind of like when the system starts. I don't think that needs to be maybe in this text, because that's kind of like advanced stuff, and like if you're like a first-time reader, I don't want to get bother the reader with too advanced stuff. It would be like we want to so the neutrality year, so climate neutrality year, so warming stops and then we have okay, then there's the selection of like what are the emissions. So I think what's the only result of this first selection, or kind of like if we have let's say that we have this results in yearly X decrease in global emissions, and here we could have then like some other color for, I don't know, but we have other color that's kind of like the result of those selections by the user. So it's not like you cannot choose it directly, but it is the result of the choices you have made. So that's also that maybe reduces some confusion. So here I also like I have done the math here so far in the right, or kind of like that shows how we basically end up in okay, maybe you cannot get it doesn't show like how the percentual decrease is calculated, and I'm not sure like how much do I want to show it here in the text, but for example this mean emissions here, that's global emissions divided by the population at a given year, for example the carbon neutrality year. So what's the population projection then? So this could be like in the text. So this, okay, let's have, why do we keep having this? This will result in global mean emissions of X tons per year, and this would also be now with a population projection of X billion people in, so here also year, and then we have like selected year, because you can also use this observe year button to to select different years here. So so maybe we also need here in the meanwhile, like we need to have yeah, I don't know, in year X, and this would be again like green in, or maybe like in observed year X, the global emissions are XGT or something like that, and then we again like we color this in green because it's chosen by the user. So and this here would be like in blue because it's not directly chosen, but it's like an indirect result. Population projection of X million. So I'm not sure this is like part direct or part indirect. So selected or like okay, let's put observed year here. Here again, like we have a green. Yeah. Or maybe that's not like needed because okay, something like this. So I think this, like, because now I have here like I have these equations, or like some a little, but this it's also a little bit like the order now is a little bit stupid because they have the result first and then they have the equation. So that's like a opposite of what it usually is, but I like to have so that you first, because it's also to signify like what's the, because all the variables are shown here to the right, so it's nice to get like what's the value should be something that it's easiest to see here, and only then you have, okay, I don't know, but I'm just thinking like how, like I could get rid of this column here, so it would be nice save this right hand side column, so it would be a nice save of space, and then I would have like more space for the column if I want, because I want to have this stuff that I have here in the top now. I want to have it as a column in the left, and especially like with some I don't know, maybe like if you have like a, depends on like your browser height, but if you have like a very not so tall browser window, it's kind of like it's not so easy to at the same time. And also what's annoying about the to see how your choices affect the results and the graphs without scrolling down here first. So that's why it would be nicer to maybe have them side by side. And also annoying thing here is that if you select between these, then the height, because well, I think I've already planning, like I could make this, it could also be a selection that I could make these like equal height, these tabs here, and then there would just be some empty space. But I think the thing that I'm planning now, it kind of it circumvents this problem if I have them to the left, like in the column. So, and there I've been also thinking about doing this kind of like accordion type selection. So and what that means is that there you can have multiple of these open at the same time. So I think that if you have, especially, okay, I don't know like how many people have like very like tall displays, so it might not be so useful, but yeah, I don't know. But okay, let's go. There was one more thing that I was thinking about this in how to organize this. Like if you have the inputs here, okay, we have the texting here. That's a little okay, let's think. Let's take the text stuff out for now, because it's because I had this idea that we would have some kind of, okay, we have inputs of different color. Like this is like the global emissions, then we have this, so this would be kind of like these input windows now that you can expand and contract. Like here we have the blue one for the individual emissions, we have the green one for the carbon price, and now what's also been bothering me that we don't have because the results here are emission costs and benefits. We haven't had this kind of like selection box or this like tabs here to the top, and then the graphs that are in the graph section, they almost match. There's like a global emissions tab here, then there's population projection tab. Okay, yeah, there's graph for the population projection, and then it starts. Okay, this also works for the carbon price. There's a carbon price tab, and then there's like a carbon price graph here. But then it starts to get tricky with, I think already with this what I have labeled here, a user emission tab. But the tab itself is called individual emissions. So I think that's kind of like, because it also includes this mean emission estimates, because these graphs are separated by what scale they use. They are not separated by what variable they are showing, but they are showing the variables that share the same scale with each other. So here we have gigatons, and then we have billions of people, and then we have tons of emissions, or this kind of like individual emissions. Then we have a carbon price, and then we have emission costs. Like, so carbon price is in dollars per tons, and then the emission costs and benefits, they are in dollars. So this maybe could be like, I don't know, I don't want to join them, but they could be, I think they could fit nicely in the same scale, but I don't think that's, maybe, I don't know. So I think one also quite a big part here would be to, or kind of like one big change here would be to, we want to have it so that each tab here, or when we get them to the left, it corresponds to a graph in the graph section, and this requires a little bit of compromises and quite a bit of like changing the structure, but I think it might be. So there could be one quite nice feature here. So let's see, we have also like, let's make a, what's the color for the, so this is another, just another shade of red here, but, so yeah, these are now the emission costs and benefits tab here. And yeah, all of these are like, there's all these selection boxes here and text and stuff like that. And maybe the idea is that if you go to one of these tabs, it would jump to that graph. So if you go to this global emissions tab in the left, it would open that graph, and I think yeah. So now I've been quite I've been favoring this idea to show all the results graph in the same window, so that you can like scroll. But I'm not sure if that's the best option. Like, there's also like a technical limitation that it's very slow to draw this graph for the program. Well, yeah, it kind of depends, but like it has to draw 5 different graphs now. So it would be a lot faster if it only has to draw one graph. So the graph that you're kind of like currently interested in. And right now I have this thing that if you change something, by default it doesn't draw it like as a reaction to that change, but you have to click the draw button, redraw button here, to show like how it affects the changes. So that's not like that's a little bit annoying, because maybe users maybe in most kind of like this kind of sites, the users have gotten used to everything changing after, if they make any change, then the stuff updates. And there's this option to do it, and this was a default choice, but then I for a long time, but then I just noticed that this is like this is too heavy. It's taking too long time, and then the user the problem there is that like the user, they might not have the patience to wait, and then they click some other stuff, and then those other like commands, they go into this kind of like line, and then when the original command it has been drawn, then those other commands, they start like it starts to clear those other commands waiting in the line, and then the user clicks even more stuff because why is it destroying and whatever, and then there's even more stuff on this kind of like on the waiting list, and then it just like takes forever, and the user exits the browser and gets frustrated, and yeah. So the user experience is quite bad right now, and like in addition to not being maybe so clear for the user, like what's happening at the page and how is my stuff affecting this stuff. In addition to that, like the technical usability or like the slowness of the page, I think that's a big issue now. So it would be easier if we could have this auto mode here. So let's put the auto mode on, and this is also a little bit annoying now that now it's gonna like it's gonna throw the graph. Yeah, but now if we change something here, it automatically starts to rethrow the graphs, and it takes, let's see, okay, this was maybe like 4 or 5 seconds. Yeah, I'm not sure, is that, yeah, I don't know, maybe that's, but it is a little bit slow, especially if you, okay, I'm gonna like chain like 3 commands now, because the users, they are accustomed to like, okay, now it's gonna, okay, now it's throwing the second command, like that, and now the third command. And then I think there was some kind of way maybe to, so that if there are these multiple clicks, then it would, I think the mechanism was something like that it checks every second if there are like new kind of like choices, and it only selects the newest one of those that have arrived within the second. So then it will like disregard like the 2 intermittent selections, and then it would only throw it once. I think that's like one thing that it can do. But yeah, it's I couldn't get that thing to work. Maybe I didn't really understand, or maybe it's just like somehow I couldn't get it to work, and I don't think it could even if I did, I'm not sure if it would have been an improvement, because that also brings another kind of lag, because I don't know, yeah. Yeah. Also, like one thing that would help here quite a lot. Okay, we take out the auto throw, and I think wouldn't be too difficult to do is that so if there's a change, then this graph section would go gray, so it would indicate that this is not like up to date. So it indicate it kind of like make it feel like invalid, so it would go gray, and then you would still have the shining rethrow button, and you understand that, okay, you have to hit the rethrow button, and then it will kind of like the new graph would appear. So that's like one more thing on how to also do this. But yeah, back to this thing is now that like if we have this, that we only have one graph at the time. So here I'm thinking we would have close to these input accordions, we would have some kind of what they call radio buttons. So we would have, okay, So we would maybe have here, I don't know. Okay, these have to be in color actually. So we would have here some kind of quite like a narrow strip with the same colors that they have for the tabs. Like that. And here if you had like the, let's say if we call it like individual emissions of whatever, you had this stuff open, then it would select that. So these radio buttons would indicate what graph is chosen. So some kind of graph selection. So this would be here like between the inputs that are like organized by the graph, and then between that and then the actual like graph section. So between those would be like quite a natural place for this graph selection. So you select what graph you want to see. And maybe by default, like every time you open a different input accordion here that is categorized by these graphs, then it would automatically select this here. So it would switch from this previous graph to that kind of like input section that you have just chosen. But then you could also, as a user, switch between these. So okay, I'm gonna, even if I don't want to, so because there's this case, okay, I'm gonna choose now emission costs and benefits, because that's very much affected if you have this, your user's cost here, $750 here. That's very much affected by choices in this individual emissions selection. And you want to see like how this affects that graph. So it's quite obvious that or the user will want to, you want to see, you don't want, you want to see the indirect effects as well here. So but it's there's some kind of balance here on giving users kind of like the obvious choice that they might want to see, and also giving them like how to make them flexibly make the choice that what they actually want to see that might differ from that original choice, and or the choice made by the site on what the site thinks. And I'm not sure about the balance here, but this could be and maybe somehow make some kind of, well, the colors here could help to symbolize what's going on. And there could also be this selection that, okay, like select show all graphs, and maybe some kind of like a caution that this will like slower down the page or whatever. Yeah, those. Let's see what else was I thinking here. I have some notes. Where are my notes? Yeah, I was okay. Maybe I don't know if I want to yeah, what would be the placement of the text section in all of this? So that's a little bit tricky, because if I want to have this stuff like high up here, and I want to have, it would be nice to have the graphs like very much side by side with the selections. But it would also be nice to have the text results very much side, or like in the same view as the selections. So I think that's a tricky part. So I think like some options for the where this text result sections that I have here in this LibreOffice window, it could be here on the top above the graphs, and maybe another one is that it could be to the right of the graphs, but I'm not sure like if there is how much space there is to the right of the graphs. If you look at the window on the right now, and like, okay, say that we have like this, even if we keep the equal amount of space that the current like right hand side column like now occupies, it's still quite narrow if you want to write some long sentences and stuff like that. You can fit like maybe 3 words for each line, and that's quite that's not too much. But maybe the benefit would be that you could have you could maybe structure the text so that all the direct choices and indirect choices, so all the stuff that is colored here, it would start at a new line. I think like it's starting at the new line, so that would mean that it would be easier to read the text, so that if you notice that if you make a change in your inputs, you notice how it changes basically the outputs, like the text would, and in many times the inputs are the outputs, but so the text would, well, it would be about the inputs and outputs basically, but well, especially the outputs, you see like how the outputs change like instantly, because then you don't have to you don't have to like you know that it's always on the left, and all are kind of like on the left, kind of like left aligned, all the variables in those text results. So yeah, in that sense it could work out, and then you could minimize it. But on the other hand side, like I was talking before, it would be nice if the text section was something that was maybe the first thing that the reader, like the new page user who doesn't know what's happening, if it would be the first thing that they see. So it would make the page easier to understand. So then if we put those to the right hand side, I'm not sure if that contributes to that idea so much compared to them being in the top of the page. On the other hand, if it's on the top of the page, it's quite like a wide text. It also comes to like how how narrow can we allow the graph section to be at the page, and and with that narrowness, it's I think where it comes down to is also like how the more narrow it gets, we want to have these text explanations in the graph, so they have to have like some kind of minimum size to so that they can be it's it's easy enough to read them. So if the font gets too small, if it gets narrow, it has to get smaller, the font, then you cannot like read what's going on there. So that's the thing, that if we have these columns, like we have the selection column to the left and then we have like results column to the right, then we have a lot more narrow space for the results than what we currently have. So that's like a one thing. Oh yeah. Yeah, but I don't. Yeah, it's a bit tricky. So, and I'm not sure if I have to decide on that now, but it might impact like this kind of my plans to have this graph selector here to the left, because that's another. I think I have to get quite a good insight on the overall layout of the page before I start working on different aspects, because everything kind of like affects like if I make some decision like late on and it doesn't like it might not fit the it might have somehow kind of undermine the overall layout plan. Like it might be such a bad fit that it kind of like ruins the overall idea of what I'm planning. So and that like it would have been better to structure the page differently overall. So that's a bit tricky. Let's see if I have some other notes here. This might affect. Yeah, and maybe overall like this is not such a big thing that like if you can like deselect the text results, or you can like choose not to show them. So then you can like leave more space for the graph results and stuff like that. So but this is maybe but it is about making like that doesn't help with giving like the overall good first impression to the user. And I think the first impression is like super important, because I think like most of the people who might stumble upon my website, they probably have like this kind of attitude that okay, I'm gonna see what this stuff is, and if it doesn't catch their attention in like first 10 to 15 seconds, they're gonna just close the site and move to some other site, especially because people don't like use websites so much in general in internet these days. So yeah, it's important. It's just very important to give the. I think lot of like my design choices have to be like balancing this giving a good first impression versus the overall usability of the site. I could also, like, I'm thinking like if I have the results to the top, I could only give them like a limited vertical space and then have like a slider. Like if I want to keep this connecting these inputs, and maybe also like do I need this this top space here? I'm just thinking like how could I like use some of this, and would I need to have like some there's this input selection here. Could I have some of the choices somehow like on top of that, so that I could have the inputs a little bit further down the page, and so that they would be aligned with the graphs, and I don't know, just like a little bit. And what about still having what if I had, like I have now, if I still had the inputs on the top here, because I'm just, and then the results to the right. No, I don't think so. I'm getting a little bit maybe more positive towards having this, if I had this right hand side as kind of like a text, like a result text. Like I think I could use a little bit smaller fonts here. Like now, part of the reason for that the fonts are not smaller is that like I have this dark background color, and then I have different colors on top of it, and some of these colors, they don't really work so well against the dark background, so then I have to have a bigger size for those colors to make them readable. But if I had like mostly white text here, it would I could keep like smaller fonts, and the reader would have just a little bit like squint to maybe make out the text in those colored fonts. Also, what I've been thinking about these colors is that right now the dark background in the graphs and in the selection areas, I've been thinking, is this kind of like too somehow, the color scheme here, is it a little bit like depressing or something? Also like I thought that like I have this like a little bit like turquoise overall color, that it would be a little bit kind of like bright, or kind of like little I don't know, somehow not depressing, but it's still like because it's still like quite dark, and then there's this dark background color. So even if I have like very like orange, like very happy colors here, I think it's still the background color is what still like it is the main color here, and it might, I don't know if it gives a little bit. So but yeah, one thing I was thinking, like could I have this for example, just like have some actual color like this instead of like a dark background. I could still have like a instead of like a dark gray, I could have like a dark green background. Like I could basically inverse this so that these empty spaces are in this dark gray background, and then the selection and the graph backgrounds are with this green stuff or something like that. I'm not quite sure, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not super happy with this, but of course, like if we have this dark blue background or something like that, that's also quite a bit limits the color palette that we can use, because then you cannot use green or blue colors on top of it, or you have to have like wear some very distinct, so that it kind of like so that's like it takes out quite a lot of the color palette. I don't know, where did we get into this discussion about the problem with, I'm also thinking, could we have the text results? What if I have them on the kind of like extreme left, so they would be left to the input, but I think that's a little bit like unintuitive, because we've used to this kind of like a world where we go from left to right, so the causality like between the inputs and the text results, it would be a little confusing, especially when we have the graph results to the right of the inputs. So yeah, I'm not sure. You could also have that you'd select between text inputs and graph inputs, and then you could also show them both. Well, I think that's gonna be in any case some kind of selection that you can choose not to show the whichever inputs. Then there's also the thing of these country results. We have this country comparison graph, and I think I want to have this in the future as well. Now you can like show this, both of these, because it's also like this. Just in this case, I've made it so that like every change it affects the graph instantly, but I'm not sure if that's correct, because this has to. It always goes. Yeah, I don't know. So we have to think about these graph results as also like, should I have should I have for these? Yeah, maybe in text results I could add like what's the for a specific country, what are the results, or maybe also about something about this distribution that could be like a text result that like in this world of we have Burundi with the like the net carbon income ranges between like okay, let's write it. So net ranges between X dollars so and maybe in year X, so this again selected by the user, ranges between 5, like this is 2, or maybe it should start, okay, net carbon, yeah, this is or maybe net carbon costs. It's kind of like hard to, how do you refer to like when the others get like a net benefit and the others get net costs. So it's the, because income already kind of like implies that it's a positive number, and then you have like net carbon costs, it implies it's a negative number, and then you see something like if we have like a net, okay, let's say we have a net carbon cost, and then you have a negative number here. So is it like easy for the user to understand that this is actually it's not a net cost, but it's a net benefit? I think maybe not. And then we have a but we could have here like minus, or we could drop the minus and just write net benefit, ranges between X dollar net benefit to X dollar net cost. So that could be the, so maybe the income like, or it could be like net carbon transfer. That could be like transfer. I think transfer could be, well, it at least like transfer you can like easily understand, okay, this is includes the dividend, but maybe it also you can also understand that this also includes the original tax, or yeah, it might be easily understandable. So this is could be text for the land comparison. I wonder if I had ideas about like some great additions to the page itself, but I don't really remember. I think like one thing that I want to have focus on is to have this simulation tables, like you can now, but maybe I don't know, there's like some better focus on like how this can be printed and maybe so that also like the printed versions would also show, I don't know, somehow the sources and I don't know. Yeah, one thing that I want to have this page to show is if you have a specific country, like you choose here show indicators for specific country, like this is if we like for these country comparisons I have this system that all the countries' emissions will converge by the carbon neutrality year. They might not converge like fully, but they will okay, let's have another country here that is poor country, Azerbaijan probably. And the user can also like select like the convergence factor here. Like we have like 0.5 now, like with convergence factor 1, there would be a total convergence in emissions by the carbon neutrality year. So this is making this kind of, so okay, Azerbaijan is above the, it's actually below the, so yeah, there's this is a little bit tricky. It's below the mean emissions, but now my so this seems a little bit that there's something wrong maybe with my math, because now because of these conversions it should work so that every country kind of like keeps their position in the emission in this like per capita emissions comparison. Everyone keeps their position, but then they just like the emissions converge to each other. So that would mean that like the countries with above average emissions, they will lower their emissions more, and then countries with below average emissions, many of them would increase their emissions to converge, and the sum of those multiplied by the populations, that would equal to the allowed annual emissions for the global emission trajectory that is meeting the climate target. So there's this kind of calculation going on in there, and it's but yeah, this kind of result is a little bit annoying, because it should well, maybe it doesn't actually mean that, yeah, I think this can happen, and that might be because of the, yeah, I think this is not, probably not like not, it's, maybe it doesn't mean that my calculation is broken or something. But I think this could also be I think this could be like fair paths for they could be likely paths, but they could also be quite like fair paths. Like, and I think like especially like if the user gets to choose the convergence factor, then they can somehow use their kind of like own fairness. Maybe some kind of like fairness, efficiency valuations or something like, or I don't know what's kind of like, and it doesn't have to be fair, especially like it just has to be a prediction of how the monetary incentives would work around the world. Like at first you like, so what's a little bit nasty about the carbon pricing is that the rich people, even if they have higher emission and they are therefore facing higher carbon pricing, or like they have to pay like more of these carbon taxes, they might not change their behavior by a lot because they just have so much money that they don't care. Whereas like some kind of like the same carbon price might feel quite a lot for a poor person, but then you have this, that the poor persons. So if you are like from Kenya or something and you make from this system, you would get like $300 per year, which is quite like in my calculations quite a usual number. So that would help you quite a lot with your carbon payments. And there's also this convergence in GDPs, like that's been historical, and this would that's been going on without this system. Like that's kind of like probably like bringing countries together also in terms of emissions. But I think this would kind of like accelerate this convergence, this dividend system. So lately I've also been thinking that because this system now, it's not it might be hard to initially get countries to commit to this kind of global carbon price and dividend system, but there could be this kind of a two-tier deal, or kind of this would be kind of like a union of countries, and it would have two levels. So if you have like if you're at first level, you could commit to fair emission pathway for the country, and you set carbon tariffs for. So this is just like now thinking about like additional policy stuff. So you commit to this thing, and then you set these set tariffs, and the second level is let's see, commit to global carbon price and dividend. This could also be like, there could be like a third tier. So this could be like that there's already in the website the possibility that you can have this national dividend instead of the global dividend. So this would mean that countries with but maybe it's not fair. So well, another tier in any case is like that you commit to global carbon price and global dividend. So, and then no need to commit to emission pathway for the country. So, okay, let's remove this second level here because it makes it simpler. So, countries in level 2 pool their fair emission pathways. And reach the pooled pathway through carbon pricing. So this would mean that the countries in level 1 and level 2, they would have two separate systems, but together, or like on average, the countries on level 2, they would reach this kind of like fair emission pathways as well, but it would be more efficient because then they could basically choose whether to pay for the emissions or reduce them, and yeah, so it would be. But I'm just thinking like this could, if a country is not, I don't know, somehow it doesn't want to commit to this system, but it is interested in stopping climate change, there should be an option for them to be somehow have an optional way of meeting these global climate goals. So in general, it would be nice to have like here for Finland we have, let's take there's the user emissions path, let's take that away. Like what's the fair Finnish and would this be fair, this kind of like climate path that Finland reduces this amount year? I think what's interesting about this fairness consideration is that I could make an estimate of like this would be nearly like X% a year. Like Finland commits to reduce, let's say like 4% per year compared to previous year, compared to each So I think that would be very like tangible for each citizen to understand. And I think I should draw like many. If I let's have here like China. Let's have Ethiopia. Let's have some poor countries. I think we want to have like very. Okay, there's Kenya. Okay, let's have like Sweden. Okay, now let's draw. So this is how it would look like countries, paths. So the thing that everyone would like see what are other countries paths defined by the system. They could see that okay, there is this convergence happening, like even if they don't know what convergence means, they would see how in these graphs like the countries are coming together, and okay, the high emission countries, they will have to reduce faster, but it's still not like but okay, it seems fair because we are so high up and stuff like that. So I think this visual presentation could help, and it would help quite a lot to kind of like it in this graph, like to indicate like what's the like the percentages for each country. But it's also a little bit tricky, like I cannot calculate like exact percentages. The way the calculation goes, it does first calculate like some kind of, we have the endpoints here. These are like determined by the fairness formula and given by the convergence factor and the targets and so on, like the global targets. But then we have to take those different populations into account, like if all the countries had, because when we calculate the trajectory towards the goal, and I think also the goal itself, like you have to make sure that the national targets add up to the global targets, and then there's like countries like China with billion people. If every country only had one person, or they had like same amount of persons, I think this, I don't know. This is you have to apply this kind of, for each year. You have to apply this kind of correction factor that it increases or like it's a bit tricky to explain, but that because it's different correction factor for each year. Then you cannot like calculate, you cannot have this kind of like Finland X% each year, what you can have for the global emissions, for the total global emissions, but you cannot have this. So yeah, But you could have, I think what I'm thinking about doing is you could have I could take the average of each annual reduction like in percentage. So say that in like because of these corrections we in Finland we like reduce 4.2% between 2039 and 2040, and then like 3.9% between 2040 and 2041, and we get like 4.15% on average between those years. So I could, I think these would be quite close, these numbers. There wouldn't be quite a lot of variation, so it would be quite meaningful to give out this figure that Finland has to reduce 4.15% of emissions each year. So it would give the sense of scale, or X megatons, like whatever, 0.2 tons per person if you choose this linear specification. Yeah. So let's see, yeah, and this is where the costs would end up. I think this would be interesting for people. Here I also need like I think I need a lot better like coloring here. It would be nice if the user had a better intuition on what's gonna like what are the net costs and so on, like it's not I don't think it's so easy to spot on how they are. Actually, where are there's Kenya and Ethiopia. I think Sweden is missing from here. Okay, maybe it's there. Yeah, it's there. Yeah, here you have this Azerbaijan, which goes from being negative to being a little bit positive, like -$8 in first year, and then you have like a net cost of $47 in the year 2070. But even if without, okay, so this emission costs and benefit, this would, it's if it was likely that countries converge with this kind of like functions within the system, then this is how the incomes would progress. But of course this wouldn't apply to these countries who only commit to this level 1 of the system. Like these countries who commit to level 2, they wouldn't commit to this individual progression. Even if like then this would be just a prediction. But if we had this 2-level system, we would have for those countries who only commit to level 1, they would commit to these reductions and they could decide how they reach these reductions. On the others, they would commit to this carbon price and dividend, and then the markets would decide, and they would also commit to this pooling their emission pathways, these that they would otherwise be given, and that will amount to like the target between those countries. Like that would amount to annual targets, like those sums of those would be commitments if they were in this old system. And then would see how the markets goes, and then the net costs and stuff like that by the markets. But it would give like the level 1 people, like they would know, okay, the level 2 people, they will have to struggle the same amount quite a bit, but yeah. So the level 1 could become some kind of like a step also to level 2, like the country could first opt into the level 1 system, and then maybe they think that okay, level 2 would be better, and maybe level 2 countries, they could step back to the level 1 system, something like that. Yeah, but the main question is would this be like a fair, like there's a lot of this discussion that because like the European countries and the US compared to China, we have lots of like historical emissions since like 18th century or something like that. Then we should have stricter targets because a lot of our current well-being and wealth is derived from that old fossil past that the other countries still, even if our current emissions are lower, but a lot of that is product of that past that the other countries haven't gotten to live. So it should be fair for us to, but I think that's very, it could be difficult to evaluate and they've tried doing some kind of evaluations, but I think it's very difficult. And here, I don't know, maybe in part, I don't know, it's especially like US, which is quite, they have high emissions already, and then they have those high historical emissions, like how hard it would be to get them to commit, and those like those historical sins, they are like super big also, so how much would it affect this? So it would put these budgets to a very produce like very low budget. So yeah. And yeah, so this I don't know. Maybe like one thing, somehow we should get them to fund some carbon sink stuff more or something like that, which is not actually, let's see. I think it was possibility to have here also include cost from land plus CCS. Yeah, there's this some kind of possibility to have yeah. Let's see if I want to think about some. But yeah, this could be interesting. I could also like have. It could be nice to have like in. Maybe I could make here in the meantime like some very tall graphs that have like attempt to have like almost all the, or I could have like 20 countries that have the most population or something like that, and graph them here. And then like two like maybe two graphs with different convergence factors. and how it would affect, and maybe like different targets. But that also already gets like because there's so much stuff to select, and that's also like the purpose of this page, that it's easier to make compare how these choices affect overall. And regarding that, like also like one big thing, it would be nice to have graphs that compare different choices that you make. For example, you have here the sync goal 5.7 and you change it to like 3.5. How it affects everything in the graph. So but it's hard to present like the. So I've been thinking like, could I somehow like keep because this creates like data tables in the background, and then those data tables are used to make this graph. So could I somehow like store the old data table that was used for graphing the last results, and then I would bring that beside the updated data table to the new graph and somehow show the old results as well. But it's hard with all this. It would overlap. Maybe I could have it like as a have it in like this semi-transparent stuff somewhere in the background. Like, could you? I think in many cases you could make out like you would understand that this is now this variable, because they usually have like they have the same starting point. For example, this total emissions here, they would keep the same starting point, and then there would be this divergence, like a slow divergence at some point there. And the same goes here, how it would affect these individual emissions and this cost and stuff like that. But that could be very nice to have. Like, so it could be better for making comparisons. But there's also a lot of tricky stuff involved there, because how these graphs are structured now is that they have like upper and lower limits and vertical limits based on the selected data. Like here we have neutrality 2070, and the graph ends, like the drawing area ends around like 2100, year 2100. There's like but if I increase this neutrality year to 2100, it increases this graph area to like, now the drawing area ends around like 2140 or something like that. So I think that's a little bit. So now that we have like those old, if we had that like as a semi-transparent graph, like that old like data, it would end here like 2070, and then the text would start in the 2070, this like total emission text, and this is not even like the worst example, I think. We could take out for the old data. Maybe we could just keep the lines and stuff like that. That could make it easier. but it's even worse the other way around. Like, okay, we go back to have a neutrality year like 2070 here. And now I wonder if it's gonna calculate through all of those. Yeah, now this is also like I slide the year, so now it's gonna like calculating for, because I slide it through like 2080 and 2075. Okay, now it's done. But yeah, now we have like we go to 2070. But imagine we went to like 2050 and something like that. We could now those lines would go through here and they would like continue. And so how do I then do the scales? Like, do I keep this wider, or I don't know, or maybe they would just continue there and just like maybe I would keep this new data will define the dimensions of the graphs, and then those all they would just like be visible there if they can fit. I don't know, like they are shown if they can be shown. Yeah, but I'm still not sure if I can, how easy it is to get the Shiny to remember or keep in store the data table for results in the previous for the previous selections. I'm not sure how easy that is to do. Yeah, I'm gonna take a little bit of look on this again. Like maybe one thing that determines also where I want them to be. Like, could I fit them here in the right instead of this result indicator box? I think one factor there is how much space is this all gonna take. So I kind of like want to write this down to kind of like get the idea of like how much space. Look at this calculation here. I think there's something wrong with, okay, no, it's now these calculations, because I have these here, I have these country emissions. So look, it's not, this could be something to fix, because it's not it's just putting them all. I should also have here like a different slider, but okay. It's not, it's just putting them all like on one sequence. So it could be nice maybe to have just for one country, or then at least put some commas here. And this get even messier here, this, because it's showing these calculations side by side. Okay, so here what are we selecting? We are selecting the budget, and here is the result, or kind of like describing the selection of the carbon neutrality year. I think we should use the term, I think, okay, here we talk about carbon neutrality. I think all around we should change it to CO2 neutrality, because this is about CO2. So I'm just making a note, because then you have those where it gets tricky, like how much are those non-CO2 emissions, but they are not like when you consider the carbon neutrality, they are not. Oops. They are kind of like not in that. So if the balance of CO2 emissions and sinks is 5.7 per year. I wonder if I could write this. So what if I write this like this? So imagine that every line is, so here would be a selection, I don't know. But I could be thinking more about so let's go here with green. Just thinking about XGD balance. Of in so then we have like width, this results in X%. This this requires X% decrease emissions if emissions decrease by same percentage each year. Same percentage, so here also percentage. So this could be also amount. Yeah, I'm thinking like, could there be a nice way to have the selections also here in the text? So then it would update those in the then I could have all this text on the left hand side. Then I wouldn't need all this. Maybe this, I don't know if this info text could also be, I don't really know. Okay, I think I'm gonna stop streaming now and work on this more later.